Tech startups and entrepreneurs are like comets and meteors. They go through space and time, through nebula. They're close to supernova. They go through the fog of dark matter. They change the world around them, trying to reach new orbits. Startup Village 2021 commemorates the first flight to space by Yuri Gagarin that not only expanded the boundaries of humanity, but here on Earth made it possible to expand the borders of science, culture, and enrich humanity. And now I'm happy to present the next session, which is called Ethics is the Limit, what AI is capable of in medicine. In all the areas of medicine, AI is used to do analysis, to analyze test results, to organize medical records. Also, AI is used if it's faced with ethical issues. And the participants of this session will tell us about existing medical services that use AI technologies, about possible restrictions in their use, and also they will tell us about ethical issues related to that. Good morning, dear colleagues. Welcome to today's session. Hopefully it'll be interesting. We see fast implementation of AI technologies in medicine, and what 5 years ago was a topic of medical futurologists has now become a reality. AI is used widely and successfully in healthcare, and we see things in the future, and we discuss following steps moving towards strong AI and making medical decisions by highly developed algorithms. But this technological breakthrough forms new challenges for the medical community. Medicine is a conservative area with lots of sensitivities, and issues of ethics and protection of personal data are something that we need to discuss. So this is also to protect the rights of patients and doctors. Those who use those technologies will be discussing how to develop a system of standards and medical practices to use these medical technologies that use AI and to set the boundaries for it. The objective of the session is to synchronize those trends with Russian practices of the use of AI. I will ask Roberto Andorno from the Zurich University to kickstart this discussion and share the position of the European regulator, how AI is used in healthcare, and about guidelines which are being developed. So over to you.
Yeah. Very good. Good morning. Thank you for the kind invitation. So my talk is about the ethical principles that should guide the use of artificial intelligence for medical purposes. And first of all, what is artificial intelligence? In just a very simple definition, we can say that it is the simulation or mimic of human intelligence processes by machines. Is this real intelligence or not? It's a philosophical question. It depends on how you define intelligence. But what is clear is that machines are not aware of the reasons behind their algorithms and their so-called decisions. So they can only operate based on the criteria or the combination of criteria that were provided by the programmers. So the responsibility remains on the humans who designed those systems. So this is just a basic statement. What is clear is that AI is the most transformative technology of our time and has huge societal and economic potential. These applications are expanding rapidly worldwide in many different fields, and medicine is one of the most important areas to be transformed by AI technologies. Just to give an example, the Danish firm Corti, has developed an AI system that can detect cardiac arrests in people calling to an emergency department in a hospital, just by analyzing their voice, their symptoms they describe. And they do this much more quickly and accurately than humans. And this helps the emergency personnel to optimize their decisions before arriving to the place. This and many other applications offer many advantages and benefits. They will improve the quality and the accuracy of diagnosis and treatment procedures. They will help to make rapid decisions and save lives, reduce pressure on healthcare personnel, staff, and the amount of labor in repetitive tasks, and also reduce costs. But on the other hand, various concerns have been raised with the use of artificial intelligence-based tools. One is the weakening of the physician-patient relationship and the vanishing role of the physician if decisions are increasingly made by algorithms and not by human beings. Issues of responsibility in case of wrong advice by the machine, issues of privacy of personal health information, issues of data biases and hidden discrimination, because AI applications could reinforce biases in the data used to train them, and lack of transparency for patients, because it's difficult or impossible maybe to know exactly the underlying logic that generates the outputs produced by AI-based tools. Precisely to respond to these concerns, over the past 4 or 5 years, different organizations developed guidelines, ethical guidelines, the European Commission, the OECD, even different bioethics committees, like NAFIL Council of Bioethics in the UK. The European Commission was and is very active in this area. It has proposed also a white paper on artificial intelligence. Even the Vatican has proposed, together with a group of companies, IT companies, some guidelines for ethical guidelines for artificial intelligence devices. And very recently, just a month ago, the European Commission presented a draft regulation on artificial intelligence, which includes also some principles applicable to medicine. This is a very, very important document. It will be the first international legally binding regulation on artificial intelligence. It will apply directly to the state members of the European Union. So what are the principles that emerge from all these guidelines? In general, the idea is that AI systems have to be human-centered, and have to be used to serve humanity, to serve people and the common good of society. Among these principles, I can mention autonomy, to preserve human agency and control. So the final decisions should be made by humans. Non-maleficence, AI tools should not cause harm. Explicability, the system should operate transparently as far as possible. And justice, so we need to ensure equal distribution of benefits and costs and be free from unfair biases. In summary, medical technologies, including AI applications, should serve people. That's the idea. That's the purpose. The people are the end of all these technologies. It's not people who have to serve medical technologies. I think that is the key idea of all these recent regulations and guidance. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for that, Roberto. Hopefully, we'll be able to have some collaboration in this area, also to help our ecosystem and our residents to achieve the necessary level of synchronization for further commercialization of our technologies in those markets where regulations will develop. Now I would like to give the floor to Sergey Morozov, who is a director of healthcare institution in the city of Moscow. So you're running a large-scale experiment to use AI in Russia. So what makes different your practices of using AI in Russia? Is there a country-specific areas? Are we aligned with other countries in that area or not? Thank you. Thank you, Natalia, for that. Hopefully you can hear me well. Yeah, we can hear you just fine. Dear colleagues, welcome and hello to everyone. In terms of differences, we don't really have any. So far, we don't have that many things to compare, but very soon we will have a joint publication with our Dutch colleagues where we compare several open services of computer vision that analyzes images, and we use similar data sets and we can do some comparisons. So that publication will demonstrate how different services differ when you use the same data set. So this morning I had a discussion with one of the developers, and the idea that all international developments should be considered whether they are adapted to Russian realities or not. But I would probably disagree with this idea because there are international recommendations and guidelines on diagnostics of various diseases and conditions, and if developer follows those guidelines, then it should be applicable in any country with minor adjustments. But in Russia, in terms of mass-scale use of AI support decision-making systems, they don't really exist. We have some pilots in Moscow and original pilots, but they were done specifically for some companies, only for investment purposes, and they follow different methodologies, and they cannot be compared to each other. And speaking of our topic, my time is quite short, and hopefully we'll need to have a program which called AI Myth Busters, because we should not think of AI as some kind of silver bullet or some placebo or magic pill. AI does not really exist. We have algorithms that automate specific actions, actions which are normally done by medical personnel, by doctors. If we talk about ethics, there are three levels. The first level of ethics is philosophical, where we study morals, and that AI discussion it's a philosophical discussion whether robots, hardware, software robots will replace humans. And what will happen then? And what things will change? But car industry provides a lot of food for thought there. Second level, ethics as an area of knowledge in medicine. So we have medical ethics, we have bioethics, and we have clear requirements for scientific research that should be followed. For that research to be adequately perceived by global community, so by medical authorities, among other things, and the study of algorithms of automated analysis of medical data, that should be done in line with criteria which are used for scientific publications for diagnostics. So new criteria for AI are being developed as well. So third level of ethics, it's regulatory level, and it describes a lot, and any management problem should be simplified. When we talk about AI in medicine, we just talk about medical software, medical devices that have their own specifics of operation when they're prepared and implemented. So when we simplify this task, and I will ask to start my presentation. I have a couple of slides there.
And we all understand that there is availability of various products before the medical market. We're talking about the registration of FDA or CE mark or registration license in Russia, and they are not answering whether their product is efficient or quality. Many tests on antibodies have NDA and CE, but they are not used in the practice because their quality is worse than others. And this is a more post-market, the clinical trials issue, in order to evaluate the real efficiency. And over here we've already seen some works in regard to AI, how exactly it can affect the medical practice. I would like to show a little slide to you. Last year, we had conducted an analysis of various algorithms from 20 companies. This year, we already made 500,000 researches, and we found the formulation of main clinical scenarios of using the algorithms. In this case, we're talking about screening. So one of two opinions of doctors. We have the Dutch, we have been working with Dutch colleagues, so and we can see that the screening of the lungs cancer has been very successful using the AI, and in this case one of the doctors can be replaced by this technology, and then the algorithm can be transferred by a chain to the next doctor. A very important thing is mobile X-ray machine, which was introduced 2 years ago to the market. They are evaluating and revealing the pneumothorax after that, and also one of the system is actually processes this whole result, and this picture becomes more describing and more visual. And over here we have some ethical matters, whether the doctor is ready to accept this information, to understand it, whether the doctor can work with these magnified and more saturated images. Maybe she or he will lose the connection to the reality. Maybe the algorithm will find something and the doctor will not find it. And over here we're talking about the ethics. For example, the freedom of will, whether the doctor has the freedom of will, if the algorithm is showing that there is a pathology. Some examples of the companies which are finding the pathologies outside the milk glands and or somewhere outside the stomach, and this is all about the failures of the production. So we are creating the ISO requirements, and I believe that this is going to standardize and make it more regulatory, and everything has to be transparent first of all, and not the development itself has to be transparent, but the clinical trials and the usage of these algorithms have to be more transparent, and then it's going to become more clear for the experts, and the development of the clinical recommendations, including the tools of automated analysis, are going to help to reduce this long route from the algorithm to the doctor and to the patient, and this is the way it should be. I have little time, that is why thank you very much for your time. Thank you very much. It's a very interesting speech. We have another Sergey here, Sergey Sorokin, founder and director of Interlogic. They are the residents of Skolkovo Foundation, and they are developing the AI platform, analyzing, diagnosing the diseases using the artificial intelligence. Sergey, what are we talking about here? So what matters of AI matters and, of course, commercial matters have been on your way while you're developing your technologies? Yes, thank you very much, Natalia. As a developer, I can have several cases as examples. We had and we still have some ethical matters and issues which we have to consider all the time. But first of all, I would like to say whether it makes sense to use AI when we're talking about B2C model. When we're not talking about the result for the doctor, but when we're talking about the result for the patient. Several times in our companies we had discussions on finding the access to B2C market, and every time we concluded that here and now, on this level of the technology development, this would not be ethical, first of all, due to the fact that me as a developer, I can say that it's a wrong thing to say on my behalf, but it's true that the AI technologies are still underdeveloped. They do not give us an accurate result, and so we do not have a right to send this information to the patient right away. Because we can see the false positive results of these technologies, and if a patient receives information that, let's say, he or she has some oncological disease, although it hasn't been verified by the doctor and it is received directly from the machine, we believe that this is unethical. Unfortunately, there are examples in the market, examples of B2C services, which show bad results, to put it mildly. We believe that this is incorrect to use it like that. I do not know whether it is going to be ethical when we're talking about the increase and the improvement of the accuracy and specificity. But here and now, we believe that it's going to be incorrect to use this. That is why we are not working with B2C. What else can we say? We are developing projects of the so-called retrospective screening. We are evaluating the researches which have been made during the COVID-19 pandemic in order to use this data to find some signs of other diseases, not only COVID-19. We have these projects in Russia, in foreign countries. And speaking of medicine and the science, we receive very interesting data. We are preparing some interesting publications and papers on that. I don't know whether it's ethical, I mean the following thing, whether it's ethical or not, but first of all, we're talking about re-evaluation of the finished research which have been done by the doctors. And it is very hard to communicate with the doctors in order to show what is the real reason for doing what we're doing. This is not to show that the doctors were wrong when they did their job. This is something impartial. As a result of a great workload of the doctors, they might have missed some other diseases. That is possible. This is the first thing. Secondly, from time to time, we really find the signs of tumor and metastasis in lungs. And then we have the repeated cooperation with the patients, because we need to have another stage of diagnosis and diagnostics with these patients. And in this case, we need to communicate properly with the patients. And this also includes ethical matters. And here we do not have any straightforward solutions. Everything is rather complex. And I really hope that with the help of our colleagues who are working in the field of ethics, we might find solutions to these and other ethical matters, and we will find some proper solutions to those. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Sergey, and we wish you good luck in your development, because you're on the frontier. You have a very interesting and groundbreaking solution, and we really hope that the approach which you have would be used both on a local and international level. Thank you. And I would like to speak to the audience, which is in the studio right now. So we were online right now, and we are going back to the hybrid format. And I would like to address our speakers who are in Technopark of Skolkovo. And I would like to give floor to Denis Shvetsov, Director General of Dr. Adam Company. And he is also resident of Skolkovo Foundation. Denis, your platform is one of the main platforms for venture business deals in Russia. Telemedicine and new services are generating great amounts and masses of data, which are used for AI as well. How can we store this data safely and securely? What is the experience of your company? Yes, good day. It's my pleasure to see you all here in this hall. It's a great, wonderful day outside. Well, there is a notion that the digital medicine has lots of data, but I would say that digital medicine has less data than the real offline medicine, the regular ones. If we're talking about the processing of the data, some protection of personal data, I would like to say that we need to focus on the facilities which are working with the patients offline. But they are still storing their data in the cloud services, on their servers, and they are processing it. And storage is much more relevant for offline medicine compared to the remote one. Because the remote medicine has the secure storage of the data in its DNA, and offline is not used to that. That is why I see a bigger risks in this domain. If we're talking about AI and processing of medical data, the ethical matters of this field, our experience shows three things. First, we thought whether we should work with AI or not when we're talking about medicine. And the answer was that we're doing telemedicine in order for the doctor to have remote work with the patient, but to increase the efficiency of the healthcare, because we know that we don't have enough medical experts. And of course, we need to create equal conditions all over the place, because we understand that there are medical mistakes which might lead to lethal cases, and we really want our healthcare level to be on some baseline for us to eliminate most of the errors. Secondly, we thought on how to do this. Sergey said that we always face this decision whether we need to create a service for the users or we should do it for the doctor. If it's for the customer, then we can make some diagnosis, we can have some reports, and the person will actually get concerned, and the person would just go back for some consultation, which is required by the medical facilities to perform their business tasks. We decided that this method is against our internal regulations, our ethical standards, because we all understand that, yes, they are not perfect yet. And when we are developing our products, we wanted the results of our AI work to be oriented on the doctors first of all. We are working in two main fields. We are collecting the complaints and issues in an automated mode for us to send the information to the doctor, for for the doctor already to know what actually the problem with the patient, and for the doctor to spend more time on the patient and on curing the patient and not on gathering the information about him. And of course, we have the possibility to diagnose some diseases and we can create some tactics of curing the disease, but we're not doing it on purpose because this has to be done by a doctor, because a doctor is responsible for health and safety of the patient, and it is the doctor who has to make these decisions. Secondly, we are managing and supervising the quality of medical services, and we have some expertise on how good the services have been provided by the doctors. And we are sending this data to the doctors or to some people who are supervising the quality of the medical services for a special expert to be able to perform procedures on correcting the work of the doctors. I would like to say that the systems are working most efficiently, and if we're talking about the quality control after we implemented it in one of the medical facilities, the quality of medical documentation and the quality of the recommendations and the prescriptions has grown twice as much. Many of us are driving cars across Moscow, and while we didn't have the cameras on all the crossroads, we could just rush through the crossroads, through the red lights. And right now, all the errors and all the misdemeanors are fixed by the camera, and we are doing just the same here and now. And no mistake is going to go unnoticed. This is establishing a greater discipline among the doctors. This establishes and helps to cultivate proper attitudes towards the patient. Another ethical matter is less about our practice and more about general practice. We already spoke about it for quite some time. What is the preliminary thing? Should we create the technologies or make them secure first of all and implement them after that? I believe that we need to have a moderate and conservative approach, because you cannot create a technology which is going to be perfect right from the start. Anyhow, this is a sequence of iterations which you have to go through. We need to give some opportunities to the companies and to the technologies to implement their practices in the real life, but everything has to be supervised by doctors first of all, in order to eliminate the mistakes and the errors which can be made by AI during the first stages, which can eventually lead to something bigger. Thank you very much. Thank you, Denise. Right now, I would like to give floor to our next speaker and discuss another matter. 2020 was record-breaking when we were talking about the technological sector on the amount of venture investments into biotech, for example. It grew by 55% and became more than $17 billion, and Russian area has become $43 billion. The growth in the biotech was due to development of digital technologies. I would like to give floor to Dmitry Politov from Web Ventures, Managing Director of Web Ventures. Dmitry, what do you think? Biotech is being more and more regulated right now. Is it something bad or is it something good? Does it decrease the investment risks due to the medical data?
Thank you very much. So the question has two sides to it. So there's a hidden agenda in this because venture investors are always asked this type of questions with additional aspects to that. There is no doubt that the face of the industry is changing, and the face of the medical industry is no exception. It faces serious challenges. It will change most likely. It is not. It has happened before in the history when pharmacology was a breakthrough in the early 20th century, and there are some other examples of that. So the industry plays and interacts in new ways. Venture business, as you stated, is a business primarily. That means funds have some money that they should invest with some kind of return. So they are not involved with saving people. Venture funds are involved with creating new financial resources and to help the economy advance. This is what we do in web ventures, impact investing. And since inevitably, like with any investments involve risks. When we select a project, we make a bet to see whether it will work or not. And the same rules applies to investing in biomed technologies. We should understand where it's going to take us. Medicine is one of the most important areas from the standpoint of ethics. Ethics play a great role here, and it is important for us as well. But not because ethics define how we invest. Of course, we want to be human, we want to be respective of our common values. But in these new areas, ethics is a forerunner of normative regulation. And when we talk about ethics or ethical norms which guide our behavior, we talk about rules that should regulate our interactions, that lead to laws, to norms that define our behavior and dictate how venture funds will use their funds, their money. So a key point when we talk about investing into AI and biomed technologies, it's always about ethics on the one hand and also whether it will be regulated. So what kind of game we'll be playing one way or the other? Because venture investments is not about coming and going. It's not that we contacted a company and we agreed on cooperation. It's about longer periods of time. And in medicine, those projects and in healthcare in general, they have a long cycle. It's not IT. It's not like 2 years is enough. These projects take a lot of time, and you become very close to those companies. So future is very important for us. The only comment I'm going to make, so we talked a lot about existing challenges, but because I represent state corporation Web.rf and its subsidiary Web Ventures, we follow various aspects. I don't know if colleagues had the time to discuss it, but there is a major problem related to AI being used in medicine because it has some impact on employment structure. When we talk about blockchain, AI, and other solutions that help to work with clinical pathologies, all those things truly change what doctors will be needed by the market, in the market. And another point, when we talk about major ethical challenges, it's about the qualifications of doctors, because they say that this system only provides recommendations, it consults, it helps find the things or see the things they may miss out otherwise. But these systems that provide assistance make us more reliant on them. So we do not count on our own capabilities, we count on these systems more. So I think it might be a threat. This is something we need to keep in mind when we train new doctors and we develop new tools for them to use. And hopefully these measures will be sufficient. And in the 21st century, we'll have the strongest clinical medicine. Thank you very much. Thank you, Dmitry, for that. Very interesting idea. I wanted to add about concerns that AI will somehow impact employment of doctors. So WHO sees a shortage of qualified personnel in the medical sphere, and we see that also in Russia. In some regions, qualified personnel is missing, those who would be able to provide high-quality services. So digital methods are only there to help, and digital images are only there to help. We have still some time, and I would like to use this remaining time and put this question to Roberto. You heard just now opinions of our people representing various spheres, from the medical community, from developers, from venture investors. So can you tell us whether you think that we have alignment here on bioethics, or other things that you've already dealt with? Maybe we did not discuss that. Maybe you already have a perspective that is well established on these issues that we discussed during this session. Thank you.
Well, these are very, very recent developments. So it's I'm very happy that that we reacted very quickly to develop some ethical principles and guidelines. So that's not always the case with other technological developments, and I think we are gradually well prepared to deal with these new challenges. So only in the last 3-4 years, I mentioned only a few guidelines, but everywhere there are bodies, committees analyzing these new challenges. So let's see. I don't know. I don't know how things will develop, but I'm rather optimistic in this area. So we have been able to identify the key ethical issues here, the question of human agency, so that the humans, the doctor, should be the one who makes the final decisions in accordance with the patients, of course. Issues of autonomy, issues of non-discrimination, of confidentiality of all this huge amount of data, etc., etc. So I think we are on the right way.
So it's a manageable process. So you think we will be able to manage it? We will not be in a situation where we'll be hostage to AI. So we'll be able to have it under control, right?
Yeah, well, that's a big question, of course. Let's see how how we are able to implement these rules. The point is to preserve the human agency, that machines don't have the last word on our decisions. It's about humans. We are humans, and we decide about humans, about patients. Machines, artificial intelligence-based machines, should help, should assist, should improve our decisions, make our decisions more accurate. But that's, in my opinion, that's all. They can greatly improve and contribute to the quality of healthcare. But I think that's all. That should be the role of these tools, in my opinion.
Спасибо. Sergey,
Thank you for that, Sergey Morozov. I'm talking to you right now. So you mentioned in your presentation we should not idealize AI, and Roberto, I think, thinks the same way. Even though they talk about strong AI, how untransparent decision-making processes, because it's fairly complex. One way or the other, we'll be facing that in the future. So your personal experience on this, and what is your foresight? Where do you see things going in the following 5 years? Do you think we'll be facing some tech challenges? Thank you for that, Natalia. Globally, there are some unresolved issues like libraries and data sets, how they are developed and maintained, to have a catalog in the library. NKB 10 cannot be fully applied to that because doctors and their clinical practices, they cannot, provide a diagnosis. So internal semiotics are required in imaging. So there are multiple standards applied to that imaging. So proxy diagnostic surrogate criteria of diagnosis for preliminary stages. So far, there is no single approach in the world in terms of standardization and data set preparation to evaluate algorithms and to train them, to teach them. We had a very good discussion on replacement of people, but there's a Fuli book that says that 15% of jobs will be lost because of AI, but we have a problem of lagging behind. Doctors are not able to catch up with the demands of the medical demands. And remote centers like Dennis, like when consulting, and other examples of remote services with imaging and other types of diagnostics. So that improves performance and accelerates the process, doubles the speed of the process. In other, this AI of the United States developed AI for hematomes and reporting that to the doctors, but in practice, the key feature of the product is not AI, even though it's impossible to do it without it, but it's the messenger, so that the doctors can talk to X-ray specialists and enhanced images are sent. So that contributes more to the accelerated speed of diagnostics. So it's not necessarily AI. Colleagues, our time is running out, and I would like to thank all the speakers. And without any exaggeration, I can say that we are at the threshold of a new era in medicine, and only this collaboration between medical professionals, regulators, only that can lead us to new successes. Thank you all very much, and bye-bye.
низких температурах окружающей среды тела быстро теряют энергию. Но нахождение вблизи источника тепла позволяет телу получать тепловое излучение. Происходит самопроизвольное перераспределение тепла. Следовательно, когда источники тепла находятся вместе, их энергия побеждает холод. Лучшее создается вместе. Газпромбанк.
МТС Стартап Хаб. Работа с реальным бизнес-заказчиком МТС. Доступ к ресурсам самого крупного телеком-бренда в России. Не можешь поверить? А в твой стартап обязательно поверят. У нас есть все, что тебе понадобится. Ресурсы, клиенты, технологии, каналы продаж. Мы оценим твой продукт, правильно применим в своем бизнесе и масштабируем на мировой рынок. МТС Стартап Хаб ждет тебя и твоих нереальных бизнес-идей.